So you don't think that the state shouldn't control what their kids learn?
I don't think that the state should control everything that their kids learn. I think that we should have some bare bones base standardization of curriculum.
So you think that the government should have more power over people?
So, I mean, actually, I'm pretty sure that like ensuring like basic rights and access to some forms of curriculum in all 50 states is giving more power to the people and taking more power out of the hands of state governments to restrict fundamental rights, such as like specialized education programs for special needs students.
Beg to differ on that.
Okay, why? What's your argument about immigration? Do you think that Trump was better for immigration?
There's no doubt about that.
Okay. Name one policy that Donald Trump is either already influenced to get passed or wants to influence to get passed to reduce undocumented migration into America over the southern border in the long term.
He is getting... Oh, what?
Oh, I was just going to say, it sounds like you can't. I mean, Kamala Harris had one, the bipartisan border bill. It was going to allot more funding to courts on the southern border.
Kamala Harris, the same one that still has people that had millions of people coming in?
You're saying that she served as a VP to the administration that oversaw an uproar and undocumented entry into America. You're correct. The reason why that upsurge occurred was because of the expiration of Title 42 deprived socioeconomic conditions in southern Latin American countries, which gave migrants a lot of incentive to come into America. And the Biden-Harris solution to this was to influence a bipartisan border bill through Congress. But of course, Donald Trump told Republicans to shoot it down and vote against it, even though that is the only legislation we've seen in modern American history to do anything that would have reduced undocumented migration into America.
Okay, so what you're saying is...
You interrupted me 7 times there. I counted on my hand.
Okay, but you interrupted other people multiple times, over.
Okay, so you're saying that you're unwilling to have a productive conversation with me because you don't think I've had a productive conversation with other people? Like holy shit, if you're going to sit up here and say that you want to be a vigilante and that you're going to interrupt me while I speak because I've interrupted other people, you're basically saying that you're not here for a productive conversation about politics. You don't want to listen, you don't want to learn, and you're just up here to like antagonize and put on a show for the other Trump supporters watching the live. Okay? So I'm going to go and repeat what I just said, and I'm going to have you listen because I will not be interrupted because what I'm saying is very valuable. It's very important that you hear me, and it's very important that I'm able to speak without interruption. I'm not just spewing nonsense out of my mouth.
You interrupt other people, though.
Legitimate education.
The hypocrisy is really bad right here.
Hypocrisy is not a word. It's hypocrisy.
I had smoke coming out of my mouth, the same thing that you had earlier, so you kind of muffled it.
I'm confused.
Anyways,
wait one second. Wait, particles in the air made you like misspeak?
It muffled? I said muffled. Didn't say misspeak. I said muffled. You know what muffling is?
You didn't have.
It means lower decibel.
You didn't have muffled speech. You said hypocrisy.
Said hypocrite?
Hypocrisy.
Okay. Anyways, go to your point.
I'll stop focusing on like that.
No, go to your point, buddy.
Too.
Go to your point, buddy.
All right, we could shake on that.
You wanted to speak it really well.
We could shake on that. So I told you that Kamala Harris was the only candidate in the race with border policy that would have reduced undocumented entry into America in the long term. And then you said, well, didn't she oversee an administration where there was millions of undocumented migrants coming into America? I said yes. And I said, well, it wasn't caused by the administration. It was caused by the expiration of Title 42 and COVID. The response to this was to try to influence policy through Congress to reduce undocumented migration in the long term by making the legal means of entry better now. The reason why COVID and the expiration of Title 42 caused an upsurge of undocumented entries because the legal means of entry into America were severely backlogged. Okay. But then Donald Trump told the Republicans in Congress to vote against this bill because he didn't want the Democrats to take a win so he could run on it as a political talking point. Meanwhile, that was the only piece of legislation in Congress in modern American history that would have done anything to reduce undocumented migration in the long term. And as you agreed, Donald Trump has never done anything to reduce undocumented migration into America in the long term.
But he's doing it now. That's the thing.
No, he's not. What is he doing?
He's working on it.
What is he working on? Tell me.
Working on it. I'm trying to, if you stop interrupting. Okay, so I'll go to my Trump in a second because I'm going to go off your point, then I'll go to my point. Kamala Harris, second command underneath the president, correct?
So the vice president is second in command to the president, yeah.
I'm just making sure we all know. Vice president, same shit, different day. If there is all this stuff making it where, and also, let's keep this in mind, the House was almost all Democrat. Correct or wrong?
Wrong.
Sorry, not the House. The Senate.
Wrong.
Not wrong. It was actually more Democrat than Republican.
Wait, saying that there's more Democrats than Republicans
no,
is not
listen,
the same as saying that it's almost all Democrats.
Let me finish.
Okay, just give me a second to correct what you said. You just said that saying it was almost all Democrats is the same as saying...
Mostly Democrats, which means it can get passed
Good thing I'm streaming on YouTube.
Which means it can get passed easier.
We're going to listen to what you said.
Okay, which means it can get passed easier.
We're gonna listen to what you said.
Okay, which means it can get passed easier.
And it was almost all Democrat. It's almost all Democrat.
Not wrong. Not the House. All Democrat. So let's keep this in mind. The House was almost all Democrat. Almost all Democrat. Almost. Keyword almost. You know how almost is spelled?
I literally quoted you as saying almost all Democrat, and you told me that's not what you said.
Most and almost is the same fucking thing.
No, almost all is not the same as most.
Whatever. Okay.
I have a question. If I was holding a bag that was filled with 1,000 marbles, and I told you that almost all of the marbles in the bag were red, what percentage of the marbles in the bag would you assume were red?
90.
Exactly my point. Almost all would denote a high percentage, such as 90.
So most would be about 70.
No, most, a majority would depict at a minimum of 51.
No. If most.
What does most mean?
Let's look it up. You have a computer in front of you.
The word most would denote one's majority. So most would denote
majority.
51 through 99%.
51 out of 99?
No, 51 to 99.
So still 60 to 70s. Okay, whatever. Anyway, it's not the point. If things were easily getting passed, democratic policies were easily getting passed through that entire year, bills, taxes, everything. Why didn't she deal with that? If she is right there, why couldn't she have dealt with it?
Okay. For those watching, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. A, I'm pretty sure that you need to be able to bypass a filibuster, which would require a majority of 60. And then B, in the second term, they didn't have a vast majority. And I think it's possible that they didn't have a majority at all. And at that point, they needed the support of Republicans in Congress. And because the Republicans in Congress did not stand behind the bipartisan border bill after Donald Trump told them to vote against it, he torpedoed that bill. You should blame that on Trump. I have no clue why.
Okay, but there was never an act to do it, though.
Yeah, there was. There was a bipartisan
There was never
border
an
bill.
act to try.
Yes, it was. It was called the bipartisan border bill. Langford, a Trump-endorsed Republican, begun drafting this bill in late 2021, 6 months after they assumed presidency. And then it hit the floor of the House in 2023, passed the floor of the House, went to the Senate. Trump told the Republicans in the Senate to vote it down, and they did.
So you're telling me that entire 4 years, but Trump is still now just able to get rid of them, though? He's just able to. So
Donald Trump actually has never.
Get rid of him?
Donald Trump has actually never, not in his first 4 years, or now in his second term, advocated for, passed, or merely spoken in front of a fucking podium and microphone about any long-term solution to reduce undocumented entry into America. Because the root cause of undocumented entry into
America. If you want to talk about that, we've been having illegal immigration since fucking ever.
Right, because essentially the legal means of migration into our country have been neglected by our Congress for all of modern American history, including the Democrats, but it's the slow, backlogged, expensive legal means of entry into America and which incentivize undocumented entry to begin with, okay? So my claim isn't that the Democrats are the party of change and really taking the cutting line on immigration policy. I'm further left than the Democratic Party on immigration policy, but what I am arguing was that comparing Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, Kamala Harris wanted to take a small step in the right direction. Meanwhile, Donald Trump wants to take a large step in the wrong direction. The reason I say Donald Trump wants to take a large step in the wrong direction is because he has no long-term border solutions, as well as he supports the mass deportation of all undocumented migrants in America, which is an American last policy which hurts the migrants, hurts us, hurts our country and our economy, while also increasing government expenditure while reducing government revenue.
So we've talked about how we feel on immigration. I've heard you through all of that. And don't think this is a little try to bypass.
I don't care. You could pivot and talk about whatever you want. I'm good.
We're not pivoting.
Okay. All right. If you don't want to call it a pivot, that's fine. That's fair.
No, I'm not trying to spend my entire life just sitting here. I could sit here for 2 hours.
That's fine. That's fine. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I want to talk about more than that.
Okay.
I want to go out and see it further.
Yeah.
What is your
chat? Stop calling. One moment. Chat, please stop calling it a pivot. He doesn't like that word. Words matter, and that's rude. Go ahead.
No, okay. Chat wants to think a pivot. Continue. I wanted to expand on the conversation.
No, please, sir. I want you to be able to bring up whatever you want to talk about. Take it away. If you want to continue to talk about immigration, we could do
Oh
that.
no,
If
actually,
you
I
want to
gotta
talk
go on
about
my
something
point
else,
for
we could
Trump.
do that too.
No, they're right. I have to go back to my point for Trump because I did kind of pivot on that.
Talk
So
about
do
whatever
you
you
remember
want.
your question for the pivot? I mean, for my Trump.
Well, of course. So I gave you a very clear explanation why Donald Trump is terrible for immigration. I talked about how he has no long-term border solutions to reduce undocumented migration, and his mass deportation of all undocumented migrants is an American last policy because it reduces government revenue while increasing government expenditure, while
I heard all
also
that.
hurting Americans and America as a whole, as well as our economy, by slowing GDP growth, crippling the labor force, which means that we are doing the opposite of reindustrializing America because there's less jobs being worked to provide for American companies, which decreases qualities of life. It's an American last policy, all things considered, and that's a fact, sir.
I didn't ask what you said. I asked what was your question for me.
Well, I don't think I asked a question. I'm
You
more
did.
so
No,
made
you
a
did
statement.
earlier before.
I think like the most recent question I've asked you is if you could name one Donald Trump policy that will reduce undocumented migration in the long term, and I do not believe you were able to answer it. So I just simply gave you my argument on why I believe that Donald Trump places America last through his immigration policy.
I will shake your hand on that one because I've not looked up. I've not done my fair research on the policies for him on the immigration.
Okay.
I really wanted to just talk about how you felt on the immigration with Kamala. And how
I feel
she has not been able to do it on her thing pretty much, but Trump is.
I feel if she was the only candidate in the race with any long-term immigration solutions.
That's fair. But I also got another question for you. The past 4 years, we have had incline, a major, actually not in the past 4 years, the past 7 years, 8 years, we've had a massive decline in education and all that. What policies did your president have for increasing that?
Yeah, I don't think that Kamala Harris had any direct education policies. However, I believe that her policies would have indirectly benefited education by increasing the quality of life for more people. Like for instance, she wanted to increase the child tax credit to $5,000 per year for the first child for the first year of a child's life, $3,600 a year from the years of 2 to 5, then $3,000 per year for the age of 5 to 17. This would have taken more families out of poverty and would have reduced childhood poverty by upwards of 40%. When we have less families with children that are focused on just trying to scrape by, get the bare means to live, and there's children in our school that are going without lunch, this decreases educational outcomes, and that was proved in Minnesota. So by increasing the child tax credit to make sure that there's more children living in poverty across our country that have access to the bare necessities, such as a lunch and a meal at school, that will promote better educational outcomes. And I also do believe that it's important to denote something that the Biden-Harris did by attempting to cancel out some student debt. They were inevitably successful with that to some degree. And then I also feel like it's important to point out that not dismissing and trying to get rid of the federal Department of Education is a start. And of course, that's something that Donald Trump has disregarded and he wants to get rid of. As well as his economic policy promotes worse outcomes for those in the low and the middle class, anybody making under $395,000 per year. And worse economic outcomes lead to lower qualities of lives. Lower qualities of lives lead to worse educational outcomes. And that is why I believe that our country would have had better educational outcomes under Kamala Harris compared to Donald Trump.
Okay, so ask me this question. What party made the Board of Education?
What party made the Board of Education?
Democrats.
I believe it. Makes sense.
And so tell me that why the Democrats made this Board of Education to make kids smarter
it's a department.
to do all this.
It's the federal Department of Education, by the way.
Sorry, it's useless, so I don't really pay attention to it. So for the past however long we've been paying taxes for this department, why are we still so far below any country when we spend $6 trillion every year?
Yeah, because I think that our public education systems need major fucking reform. But I don't believe that the reform we need is disregarding and dismantling the Federal Board of Education. I believe that we do need a bare bones system on the federal level to ensure that children across all 50 states have standardized curriculum and adequate means insofar as school-by-school funding. I do understand that the outcomes of the Department of Education have not been as good as I'd like them to be. I think that the Department of Education, alongside public schools in general, need major fucking reform. Nobody disagrees there. If anybody does disagree, they're just simply incoherent. However, reform is not equivalent to dismantling and getting rid of the Federal Department of Education. I believe that those outcomes will only become worse if that were to occur.
So you don't think that the state shouldn't control what their kids learn?
I don't think that the state should control everything that their kids learn. I think that we should have some bare bones base standardization of curriculum.
So you think that the government should have more power over people?
So, I mean, actually, I'm pretty sure that like ensuring like basic rights and access to some forms of curriculum in all 50 states is giving more power to the people and taking more power out of the hands of state governments to restrict fundamental rights, such as like specialized education programs for special needs students. I do not think that any state should have the ability to deny special education plans to special needs students. I believe that is something that will promote drastic and terrible outcomes, and actually do find that to be a violation of the rights of children across our country, as access to education is a human right. And if a state cannot provide adequate access to education, especially for special needs students, that is a violation of one's human right. And I do believe that that should be protected and enshrined on the federal level.
But the thing, it hasn't been. That's my point. It hasn't been.
So the argument
it's been here for so long, and you want it to be like this, but it hasn't.
I've already said this. I've already said this 2 to 3 times, and you haven't addressed it. It's not true that it hasn't been, because it has been. It just hasn't been protected well. Okay, I do not believe that the curriculum standards are up to par. But once again, I believe that the adequate solution to that is to reform the Department of Education, not to get rid of it. I believe that getting rid of it will produce better outcomes
multiple times.
I believe that reforming it will produce better outcomes, and I believe that getting rid of it will produce worse outcomes.
Beg to differ on that.
Okay, why?
Why? Because where do you live? Like city, not country, state-wise.
I live in Colorado.
Colorado? I live in South Carolina.
Okay, I have a question. What are the educational outcomes of red states compared to blue states?
I wasn't even going at that, buddy.
I was just hinting at the fact that Republicans are really bad at managing education. So we probably shouldn't listen to a Republican and what they say about access to education. Louisiana, Oklahoma, Texas, 45th, 46th, 47th. What about Massachusetts? They're blue. All counties. Where do they rank? Number 1?
They rank number 1?
Yeah.
Well, if you also point out, every major blue state has more taxable income and more money is sent for their schools. While in South Carolina, my schools are barely scraping by and having any proper utensils and equipment that were actually meant to be provided by the Board of Education. Sorry, got it there.
Well, you're exactly right. Okay, you're exactly right. And the educational standards in like red states are barely scraping by because Republicans are significantly less willing than Democrats to allocate funding to social services.
Thank you for muting me and interrupting me.
One moment. Including education. And what happens through a federal Department of Education is blue states end up subsidizing the education of red states. And that's yet another reason why we shouldn't get rid of it. I apologize for interrupting you. There's just such an important point to make. I won't interrupt you again. I do understand that is not fun. He ran.